We're going to be talking about chameleon geckos, specifically Urodactylus valderi. English, yeah, roll the intro. Now, before I get into the deep subject, as you see right there, there is the year this video is made. Reason I'm putting this is because care is always changing with reptiles and herps in general and just all this stuff in our community. So I don't want to have my care guide be used, say 2 years down the road and it's out of date information and people have bad success with whatever they're trying to do because there's a better means to do it now. So, that's it. In all my care guides prior to this, I'm going to put in the comment section because those have already been published. Alright, talking about their care now. What are we going to talk about? We got all the options. I think we're going to talk about heat first. Now, what is their heating like? Now, as a New Caledonian species, they'd rather be much cooler than, super hot, like, say, I don't know, a Cuban false chameleon behind me. Watch those videos. They're false chameleons, too. Don't like to have high heat environments. So you want to keep it around the 70 area, not too high, not too cold, perfect, an average house temp in most homes. Now, if your home is, say, 65 degrees for whatever reason, there's an easy way to fix that. You can either run heat tape on the back with a proper probe so it doesn't, cook your lizards or burn down your home, or have a heat bulb on there and make sure it runs to the proper temps. But, why you gotta like it so cold, bro? Raise some temps up. Yeah. What is another subject that kind of comes into play with heat really well? I think that is UVB. Now, unlike most new cow geckos, many of them don't need UVB to be 150%. Do many people still offer it? Yeah, so should you? In those other new cows? Yeah, do what you want. Give them a night and day cycle. That's all they really need. Give them UVB, everything's a plus. But back to them. Chameleon geckos do, in my opinion, truly benefit from UVB. Now, a lot of these care guides, a lot of these articles, they'll say you don't really need it, but you benefit. Now, in my experience, and just how that sounds coming off my tongue, it kind of sounds, fence sitting, a little weak. So, in my opinion, give them a little bit of UVB, a little bit of that tropical 6% Arcadia, or that 5.0 Repti, whatever that thing ZooMed makes. I live by Arcadia, if you can't tell. But yeah, give them UVB. They're gonna love it. They're gonna benefit it. And you can go with some periods without giving them it. Yeah. But in my opinion, you should offer them UVB. They do benefit from it. What is the humidity requirement like on these guys? Since we were talking about their heat, let's talk about their water and all that. So, these guys like to be a little wet, a little moist, some would say. Now, you want to keep it anywhere from 60% all the way to 80%. Now, the real interesting part of that is, you'll read an article and now you're sitting there like, well, damn, how do I make the humidity go up? So, quite frankly, if you're doing a little setup, right, you want to do this. If you're doing deep soil for a bioactive setup, that's going to have a spike in your humidity. If you have a bunch of plants in there, it's going to help with your humidity. If you have good coverage and just gives a lot of places for moisture to get trapped up or dupe the buildup and all that lovely stuff, that will help with humidity. Now, if you're also running a misting system on said cage for your geckos on a good cycle, say every couple hours it gives a good mist for a bit, that's also going to keep your humidity up. Now, I personally as well like to do the lower humidity in the morning, right? Rise it up to about 70 in the middle of the day to the afternoon. Then right when I turn off the lights for the day, boom, I spray it down real heavy because in my experience with most of my reptiles, if I give them a good spray down at night, they're going to be able to sit in the water on the leaves and all that, and they're going to be able to absorb extra water. It helps with their hydration, their diet, and on top of that, right there, it helps with egg production. Now, we're going to talk about cage sizes. Now, an average cage for these guys, what people would use for an adult male and or female, they'll like to put them in a 12 by 12 by 18. Yeah? Now, they also do that with pairs, and when I got them, that's initially what I did. I wasn't the biggest fan of that, and I wanted to also build my own cages, and if you watch this video right there, that's actually where I built this. Now, it is not an 12 by 12 by 18, it's larger than that. It's almost don't know, I think it's somewhere around 20 inches tall. I don't remember the exact measurements ever off the top of my head. It's bigger, so it's bigger than a 12 by 12 by 18, but it's smaller than an 18 by 18 by 24. Go watch this video, it'll make a lot of sense. But yeah, you know, that's what I like to do for them, and I really do believe if you can give these guys extra height, they really do enjoy it. My pair has been going crazy ever since I put them in there. They've been gaining more weight, they've been more active, they've really been enjoying this new environment with all this extra room, and I really am enjoying this, and soon everyone will be in these cages. Everyone who can fit in these cages of this relative size in a proper manner. Now, when it comes to a chameleon gecko or Urodactylus, there is this crested gecko diet. It's not just made for crested geckos, it's made for pretty much any reptile that will sit down and enjoy fruit, like you know, some anoles, day geckos, other Caledonian geckos. They're your main ones who are going to be eating this. But these guys do love it, and I mean they love it. That's why you should try to spice it up with what kind of diets they're eating. You know, there's 3 big brands that serve high quality food, so I would often recommend switching between the 3 so they're never, you know, your gecko's never getting used to just one. Then, you know, 2 to 3 times a week, that's your golden rule. Then on top of that, you want to offer things like insects, small dubia, small red runner, some Hydia fruit flies to throw in for some enrichment, some extra, just to get them running if they will. They probably won't, but if they do, you're gonna have some fun. They're gonna have some fun as well. And crickets. Now those should be offered about the same amount, honestly, you know, 2 to 3 times a week. And in my opinion, you can go one feeding by offering just a fruit diet, and then the other with just the crickets. But how I like to do it is I always like to offer them at the same time. So, you know, the crickets will run in, they'll try to go eat this food or whatever I'm feeding them. But, you know, it also helps encourage them to eat other foods. Because say there's a cricket on there and it's a food you know they don't like. Well, if they bite the cricket, they might take a bite of that diet and they might say, whoa, that's nice. What is a chameleon gecko? They are a small-bodied gecko from New Caledonia. Now, these are a very unique gecko just looking at their scalation, which is pretty much only found in another chameleon, false chameleon kind of thing, which is the Cuban false chameleon, where it's more like circle-ish, you know, which I always thought was really interesting, was always drawn me to them. Now, another cool thing about the chameleon geckos is that the females are the big dogs, you know, while their boyfriends are little guys. These guys can drop their tails, it's segmented to the point, but very interestingly, they're not very likely to drop their tails, which means if I wanted to like tug on a little bit, like, you know, boop boop, you know, there's some geckos that could have been their moment, that could have been their little tail dropping adventure. But how they like to use it, to what I'm getting an understanding of how it works, is say I'm a predator and I'm coming to bite it off, crunch, next thing you know that bit of the tail comes off and they run away. But it also does regrow. Now also, speaking of their tails, they are one of the only few geckos on this lovely planet we all share that can also secrete a kind of fang out of their tail. Now I don't know what it's exactly called, but I can tell you it's sticky and it's very weird. They don't normally do it often, because most of the time they have to be friend to it, and I only ever had them do it a couple times when I first got them, when they're still getting used to me. Another really cool thing about chameleon geckos is, as we know, most small geckos don't live extremely long, which is a really sad thing, because most of them have full, very fun little personalities, and especially the chameleons. But these little guys actually live at least somewhere from 10 to 15 years, and I personally think the longer we keep them and the better we get at keeping them just as a whole, because there ain't that many keepers or breeders out there at the moment, we will start to see longer lived chameleon geckos. Now on average, you see a lot of them die off at around the age of 13, especially female breeders. Which is, you know, pretty interesting, because I'm not sure if those female breeders are still reproducing properly, because I couldn't find much information from those breeders. But if you find that out, that's normally a good indication they can live longer than that. But for a general guidance, it's good to say they'll live anywhere from 10 to 15 years. Unlike most small geckos again, where they'll start reaching reproduction age in a fairly young state, normally within less a year or a year, these guys will take at least about a year and a half to 2 years for most of the Urodactylus and their, other stuffs. Where Samatry, the real cool one, the real expensive, hard to breed one apparently, is normally about a minimum of 2 years, which is really interesting. Yeah, what y'all think? But that's a good sign to help know when your chameleon gecko is really going to slow down in their growth. They're really going to be more what we can all kind of agree on as adults. So that's how long it's going to take you to make your little guy a big grown up in this lovely little world.